pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, for all the masses in attendance this evening, if you wish to speak during the citizen comment period, please sign up on the sheet in the back of chambers. Item 2 is the adoption of the meeting agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 3-0 vote approving the agenda. Item 3, items from, I guess that would be Vice Mayor tonight, wouldn't it? Might try to throw me a curve. Just want to remind everybody, a couple of things. I just want to remind everybody, Destination Downtown is tomorrow. Hopefully everyone got their tickets. Everybody watching, everybody here got their tickets, and we'll see you downtown tomorrow. I know me and my wife will be there. The other thing is I want to take a minute to indulge myself, if you gentlemen don't mind. Yesterday being Memorial Day, for the last year, there's been a handful of people trying to do a bigger celebration, a little bit more appropriate for our fallen men and women in uniform. And it was a good day as far as that went. There was a good turnout. There was over 100 people there. It was a good ceremony. I would like to thank Leah Hale and Shanda McGuffin, Shanda from the Historical Commission and Leah from Salute Nonprofit, as well as a employee at the Community Services Board who hosted a reception afterwards, a catered reception. They did a fantastic job. But I have to say, if it's possible on a solemn day as Memorial Day, the hit of the parade was the Waynesboro High School football team. Those young men, there were 14 of them from the football team, and let me pull it up here. I'd like to read their names because they did such a phenomenal job. They came up actually just to help set up, and then after they realized what was going on and asked some questions and was discussing exactly what Memorial Day means, they asked if they could stay throughout the ceremony, and they actually stayed not only through the ceremony but helped tear everything down. They helped folks who with disabilities and the elderly walk up to the event. They carried chairs for folks. They were extremely helpful. They were extremely polite. It just goes to show that future's bright in Waynesboro because we have fine young men who helped out with that yesterday. And they did a lot of it without even being asked to do so. It was all volunteer. Even to the point now to where they're heading up they want to do a field trip to Arlington, so because they want to learn more. And couldn't be prouder of these young men. Gabe Smith, these are all football players that were there. Gabe Smith, Fernando Castillo, Mason Holmes, Amari Truslow, Luca Pesci, Ethan Newsom, Cameron Newsom, Briscoe Miller, Jason Smith, Damian Smith, Braxton Brooks, Hayden Morris, Lane McNorton, and Andrew Surrett. All those young men came out yesterday and made quite an impression on a lot of people. And it just shows how much they want to be involved in our community. And I think it was just such a good bonding for the community. Coach Bell and Coach Clark had them out there. And I just can't say enough of what an impression they made and what a good job they did yesterday. So hopefully anybody watching, that will motivate you to see you on Friday nights in the fall, because they're supporting the community, so we should go out and support them. That's all I have, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Nothing.
You good? All right. Let's move right along then. Item 5 is consideration of the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is a 3-0 vote. Approving the agenda. Let's see here. Consent agenda, excuse me. Item 6 is to hold a public hearing and consider adopting a ordinance amending tipping fees at Augusta Regional Landfill. Mr. Hant.
Yes, sir.
Gentlemen, you'll recall that this matter was presented fully at the previous meeting. I'll hit the highlights. Waynesboro has participated in a regional landfill since 1999. There's a committee of owners' representatives that oversee the landfill operation, which is managed by an individual that's employed by the Augusta Water Company, formerly Augusta Service Authority, or Augusta County Service Authority. The last time the localities adjusted tipping fees was 2007, and you can imagine in the ensuing 18 years, operational cost, fuel cost, regulatory compliance costs, and capital costs have all increased to the point where the landfill manager has recommended to the owners that we increase the tipping fees. And these, I should point out, and it's an important clarification, these are the commercial tipping fees, which apply to the commercial haulers and businesses that rely on the landfill. You likely recall that residents of the member jurisdictions are allowed to dump at the landfill for free in most cases. So this recommended increase applies only to commercial rates, increasing the base fee from $45 a ton to $52 a ton, at which our landfill will still be among the lowest in the region that extends all the way up to Frederick County, south to Roanoke County. So still very affordable, still on the lower end of tipping expense, but very important to maintain the self-sufficiency and operational solvency of the landfill. So with that, I recommend that the council adopt the ordinance. We're required to have a public hearing this evening, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
I just want to be clear, this is for commercial only, residents still is business as usual.
Correct.
Yes,
Yes,
I just
sir.
want to make sure everybody understood that. Any questions? Mr. All right, so this ordinance has been introduced and discussed. Unless there's any additional comment or discussion, I'll call the question.
So,
All those in favor of the ordinance, say aye.
So,
Yep,
so I've messed you up on the notes again.
you did.
Yep, we need to open and close the public hearing, or open a public hearing, see if there are any speakers. So those
There
are
are
not
none, but-
included in my notes.
So to be official, I hereby open the public hearing.
No one has signed up to speak.
Then I hereby close the public hearing. And then, since it's been introduced and discussed, unless there's any additional comments, all in favor of the ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? 3-0 vote approving the ordinance.
Thank you.
All right.
That's my mistake, and that also, that same mistake is replicated on the next item.
Okay. Let's see, try not to do the same thing twice on my end. How about that? Item 7 is to hold a public hearing and consider adopting an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2024 budget in the amount of $1,395,313. Mr. McCormick, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. So the total amount of this ordinance is $1,395,000. Due to its size, it does require a public hearing, which is why it's before you this evening again for a second reading and not on the consent agenda as it would generally be. Couple of highlights on it: miscellaneous grants and donations, which are mainly comprised of an additional $300,000 of grants for additional work at the South River Reserve, and $100,000 of various grants for the school operating fund. Appropriation from fund balance of $820,000, most of which is $750,000 of school fund balance for construction expenditures related to Shenandoah Valley Center for Advanced Learning in Waynesboro High School. And then $70,600 of assigned reserves that we keep to match grants for the Waynesboro First Aid Crew. That specific grant is a ambulance in which they received, and that's a 20% match for that. And then various taxes in the amount of $62,524. That's another one to just make council aware. That's the amount of the required amount for the economic development agreement for Waynesboro Place for the current year. So generally, we wouldn't appropriate meals and sales tax during the current year, but that's the rebate to those. To the developer for the meals and sales received. Again, this was introduced and seconded at the last meeting, so the remainder of the work here would be the public hearing and then to call the question.
Okay. Well, with that explanation, I hereby open the public hearing.
No one has signed up to speak. Let me offer some additional guidance on this item. The ordinance requires that the majority of the elected body pass or vote favorably in order for it to pass. Because we have a majority of the body tonight, if any of you contemplate voting no, I would ask that the body postpone the vote until we have a full body to consider, because if, unless all three members vote yes, that can be overcome, but it gets a little complicated. So,
So I will
yeah.
close the public hearing and then gather the idea during the discussion before a vote. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes, sir, thank you.
All right, since there's nobody signed up, I hereby close the public hearing and open for discussion. Should we go ahead with the vote?
Green light.
Everybody's comfortable? All right, since we do have a three-person quorum majority here, then since it has been introduced and discussed, unless there's any additional comment, I'll ask the question. All in favor of the ordinance, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is a 3-0 vote in favor. All right. Item 8 is to receive a presentation and consider introducing an ordinance granting a conditional use permit allowing construction of townhouses in Highway Business District at 0 King Avenue, tax map number 26-1-E, upon application by Melvin L. Garrison III, agent for Kenneth Cook Revocable Trust owner. Ms. Tate.
Good evening. I will be providing a presentation this evening on this conditional use permit request to allow townhouse development in our highway business zoning district. As you all know, conditional use permits do allow for a case-by-case review of uses which may be, but are not always compatible with neighboring uses. And in order to approve, the proposed use must be consistent with good zoning practice, no more adverse to health, safety, or comfort of persons living or working in the area than those uses that are generally permitted in the district, and no more detrimental economically or otherwise to property or improvements in the surrounding area than the uses that are generally permitted in the district. So as previously mentioned, the location of this property is 0 King Avenue, and it is directly across from William Perry Elementary School. So the nature of the request, it is a conditional use permit for townhouses in the Highway Business District. It is a 9.471 acre parcel, and the provided concept plan shows 79 townhouses on that property. Again, this just shows the development of the surrounding area. So to the north, you have the Food Line Shopping Center, you have self-storage and the DMV. To the east, you have Kingsway, which is a Waynesboro housing and redevelopment property, and then also William Perry Elementary School. To the south, you have single-family residential townhouses, and to the west, you have vacant land and single-family residential. This is the provided concept plan that the conditional use permit would tie the applicant to general conformance of, and this shows one entrance onto King Avenue, some adjacent parcel connections to undeveloped property, and as previously mentioned, 79 townhouses. This is just a little bit more of a zoomed in concept so you can see how that lays out on the property. As was noted in your staff report, with the changes that were recently made to parking requirements for townhouses, the applicant would be able to kind of amend this layout to reduce some of that parking that is shown. So they could potentially get some more units than the 79 that is shown. But staff also recommends that they just fall under the overall requirement of 10 units per acre. That is the requirement for the townhouse development within multifamily, as some of the adjacent properties are. So the comprehensive plan designates this property for commercial retail. The plan encourages that we have more compact residential development close to areas of intense activity. The property does not front on Hopeman Parkway, and there are some other business out parcels that do. And staff notes that there is transit opportunities and shopping in the nearby vicinity. The zoning is highway business, so townhouses are only allowed if permitted by a conditional use permit. Property used for townhouses or multifamily to abide by this conditional use permit request must be at least 20,000 square feet, and this property meets that at just under 9.5 acres. So as mentioned, the applicant's proposing 79 townhouses. That's a density of 8.34 units per acre. Under our RG5 zoning, we permit 8 units an acre, and under our multifamily zoning for townhouses, we permit 10 units per acre. So the density may change as I mentioned, based on those parking numbers. So staff would be recommending that the applicant's conditional use permit, if approved, would require them to comply with the RMF zoning requirements to allow no more than 10 units per acre. And also that the development be built in general conformance with that concept plan, obviously noting that some things could change, but would have, those general connections and access points as shown. And this, again, is that concept plan. So the property is surrounded by a mix of commercial and residential development of varying densities. Residential in the area is a mix of townhouses and single-family detached. And then there is a significant amount of property within the vicinity that is zoned for multifamily development. So the proposed development is consistent with that surrounding zoning. The project would be accessed by one boulevard-style entrance across from the entrance to William Perry Elementary School. Staff does recommend a condition that this style entrance be provided, and essentially they are providing interparcel connections to other adjacent property, but until those develop, you would really have only one connection for the number of units. And so the boulevard entrance kind of helps separate that traffic, so if there was any kind of emergency situation, that hopefully there would be the ability to have ingress and egress from that site. And then, as noted, there are 2 future road connections shown on the western side of the property. The applicant did submit a turn lane warrant analysis, and it was noted that no turn lanes improvements were warranted based on that analysis. This red boxes highlight those interparcel connections, and those are shown to parcels that are undeveloped but zoned for multifamily development. There are roughly 3 parcels that are there that I think are all owned under common ownership that have roughly 75 feet of frontage on King Avenue. And then this shows the connections that would be provided. And then this blue box represents that boulevard entrance directly across from William Perry Elementary School to be the primary server of this development. This picture just kind of shows what that boulevard style entrance would look like to help separate the traffic. So in analyzing the request, there is an existing sidewalk network, and the development would be required to have sidewalk connections. Public water and sewer are available to serve the property. Water and sewer requirements and fire flow would be determined at our public improvement plan stage. The school district is William Perry Elementary School, which is directly across the street. It could likely be an increase in students for William Perry and also our middle and high schools, but based on recent numbers that have been provided to council and were also in your report, there are no concerns about capacity at this time. If the CUP is approved by council, then the applicant would follow up with the submission of a preliminary plat for review and approval by the Planning Commission. So staff would review to ensure compliance with zoning and the subdivision ordinance. And then once that staff review is complete, a public hearing would be had at the Planning Commission. And then following up with that would be the more detailed engineering, public improvement plans submitted to Community Development and Public Works for review and approval. So to summarize, townhouses are allowed in our highway business district, but only by a conditional use permit. The proposed development is located in an area that has transit access and an existing sidewalk network. Staff believes that it is consistent with the zoning of the surrounding area, and specifically the multifamily zoning that is directly adjacent. The necessary utilities are present, and city schools have capacity for the additional students. So staff and the Planning Commission do recommend approval of the conditional use permit with 3 conditions. So first, that the development be developed in general conformance with the King Avenue Townhouse Concept Layout exhibit that was included in your packets, that the development be built according to the area and dimensional standards of the residential multifamily district, which would cap the density to 10 units an acre, and then lastly, that a boulevard-style entrance be provided for the primary access to the development from King Avenue. So that is all I have, unless you all have any questions about the staff report.
Is there any questions?
None?
Thank you, Lou.
Yeah.
All right, since there's no question, is there a motion to introduce the ordinance granting a conditional use permit to allow construction of townhouses at 0 King Avenue?
Vice Mayor, I'd like to introduce an ordinance, I guess, or rules of order here, to introduce an ordinance to advance the application to a public hearing at a subsequent meeting.
I think that's fine. The law simply requires that an ordinance be considered twice, and I think that motion, shows that it's been considered this evening.
So we can change it just to the,
Just basically, just advancing it to a public hearing.
Correct.
not issuing the permit yet.
Correct.
Or offering an opinion.
Or offering an opinion, yeah.
Yeah, there's no substance with respect to this being acted on. We're just simply considering it and moving it along to the next meeting.
All right, so then we'd ask for a motion to introduce, continuances for the public hearing.
Or deny.
Is that correct word?
I think so. I'm sorry, I was getting some legal guidance too.
The legal guidance shook his head yes.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Short. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And that is a 3-0 vote to move that forward to the public hearing. All right. Item 9 is to receive information regarding and consider approving revisions to the city's mutual aid agreement with Augusta County. Mr. Hand.
Mr. Vice Mayor, members of council, this one's a little bit unusual in that there is an agreement in place, and staff in reviewing that realized that it has a sunset date in it. So ordinarily, these agreements between jurisdictions are set in place, and unless there's a reason to reconsider them, they just exist. But because a sunset date was established in the last adoption, we're here tonight talking about the mutual aid agreement. A mutual aid agreement simply outlines, memorializes through documentation the relationship between two jurisdictions who furnish a particular service to one another. In this case, it's fire emergency rescue services. So I thought it would be a good opportunity to just refresh the body on the fact that the agreement exists, and then have Chief Holloway give a very summary explanation of how it works and how it benefits the community. So with that, I invite Chief Holloway to the podium.
Vice Mayor, members of council, good evening. I'm here tonight to provide you a brief overview of the updated proposed mutual aid and automatic aid with Augusta County. As Mr. Hamp referenced, a mutual aid and automatic aid agreement aims to establish a legal basis for two or more entities to share resources. The proposed agreement, which you have a copy of in your packet, maintains their same general practices between the two localities that has gone on for many years now. This is simply an update. I will expand a little bit, maybe to give some examples of the use of the mutual aid or automatic aid. So when we reference an automatic aid agreement, I give a couple of examples. If we have a reported structure fire here in the city of Waynesboro, what you will receive is a full response from our organization. In addition, you'll get one engine company from Augusta County. Depending on what part of the city that's on, if it's on the west end of the city, you'll get an engine from Station 11 there on Jefferson Highway. If it's on the east end of the city, you'll get an engine from Dooms Volunteer Fire Department automatically. Again, they would be automatically dispatched. The only delay would be if there was any delay from our ECC contacting the Augusta ECC for that request. An example of a mutual aid request, it would be something where we wouldn't automatically be on the assignment. So for example, a great example would be something, we've utilized mutual aid on a regular basis from Augusta County. Most recent example was we had multiple calls going on with the city. Our two engine companies were tied up on emergency incidents. Our truck company crew had relocated to the ambulance to respond to a medical emergency, and we had depleted all of our resources. So at that point, when the next call came in, our ECC did a great job, immediately notified Augusta County to get resources in here, and that would be, again, a mutual aid request. It does happen on a consistent basis. We share these resources. We got a great relationship with Augusta County, and it's worked out well for many, many years. So at this time, I'd just like to answer any questions you guys may have. All right. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. If council is inclined to authorize the city manager to execute, if you could do so by simple motion and vote.
Okay, well, is there a motion to authorize the city manager to execute this agreement?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Second?
I'll second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That is passed 3-0. Before we go any further, I'm gonna let you know that I do not have the wording for the closed session, to go into closed session.
It's in the,
Is it in there? Okay. All right. So, all right, let's see here. Item 10, communication, correspondence, and calendar, Mr. Ham.
Yes, I have one item this evening, and that's simply to alert the council and the public to the fact that the Shenandoah Valley DSS provides cooling assistance during the warm weather. The application process for that is getting ready to open on June 15th and will run through August 15th. Cooling assistance is only provided to families in which there is a vulnerable individual, and that is an individual over 60, an individual under 6 years of age, or an individual with a disability. Cooling assistance is available to purchase equipment, so a window fan or a window air conditioning unit. It wouldn't actually need to be a window fan, a fan of any sort. Repair central heating equipment or cooling equipment that is already in existence but perhaps not performing adequately. And then also to assist with energy bills associated with cooling. So that is a needs-tested program also. And the ultimate level of aid furnished is determined into the application season a little bit. So we're not able to communicate to applicants in advance of what the aid might be. But if we have families or individuals that meet that eligibility, those eligibility requirements, I would encourage them to go on this Shenandoah Valley DSS website and look for, you can apply online or contact the agency directly. That's all I have this evening.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ham. Item 11 is citizen comment.
No one has signed up to speak.
In that case, we will move forward to item 12. Item 12 is a closed meeting, Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3711A6, to discuss award of a public contract. Is there a motion?
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move this meeting be recessed and that the City Council of Waynesboro immediately reconvene in a closed meeting for the following. A, per Virginia Code Section 2.23711A6, to discuss the award of a public contract regarding the animal shelter, involving the expenditure of public funds, including binders or offers, and the terms of scope of such contract where discussion in open session would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the city. And B, per Virginia Code Section 2.23711A5, discuss the relocation or expansion of a business or industry where no previous announcement has been made in conjunction with the Virginia Economic Development Partnership.
Is there a second?
second.
Is there any discussion? This requires a roll call vote. Ms. Bortle?
Vice Mayor Wood,
Aye.
Councilman Short,
Aye.
Councilman Lee,
Aye.
All right, we are in closed session. return to open meeting and certify the closed meeting.
Mr. Vice Mayor, I move to adopt the following resolution, whereas the City of Waynesboro has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to the affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires certification by this City Council that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of Waynesboro hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, one, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which the certification resolution applies, and two, only such business matters as were identified in the motion conveying the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the City Council of Waynesboro.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Ms. Bortle?
Vice Mayor Wood,
Aye.
Councilman Short,
Aye.
Councilman Lee.
Aye.
All right, we are back in, so now I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Short.
Second.
Is there a second? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.